G'day. This week we're going to be exploring some of the history of the Llangothlin area.
We're coming up here now to the dairy, and there's a few interesting things here I can point out. All of these posts would have been cut from the natural timber that was standing in the area. Now I don't really know exactly what the timber was. It's all eucalypts of some sort or another. These would have all been bored out, and you might just be able to see, if you look at the very edges, it's a little bit hard to make out, but you might just be able to see the patterning in there, the rotational patterning of where the drill bit or the auger has gone through there. And this would all have been done by hand back in the day. So this is the view out the front of the old dairy here at the Little Llangothlin Lagoon. Up in the back, far away, if I zoom in, you might just be able to see those little white dots up there. That's all new trees that have been planted. And so all of those trees very much relate to a lot of these materials that we've seen here in the dairy. So we've got some of these wire cages that are left over from earlier attempts at planting trees, and in here we've got lots of stakes and lots of these core flute protectors. So these help the trees to be a little bit protected from animals and even from temperature and frost until the trees get big enough and can look after themselves. We've got these beautiful old pieces of machinery. Let's have a look out the window. What can we see out the window? We've got some old fence posts down there. That's what they look like after they've been eaten out. You see that row of holes there? They would have actually been just little bore holes bored out by a brace and bit back in the day. A nice little stand of trees. And in here we've got some of the machinery associated with the dairy. Now I don't know what this machinery is. I don't know. What I can tell you is this is an old bit of cement. Definitely very old. Now this machine was bolted down to this cement, and we can still see one of the bolts is actually still in place there. Now the machine, that says 45 perhaps RPM. I don't know what this is. Something turns around there. Originally there would have been another component here on top that's not there anymore, and everything turns around. There's a sight glass here, something to allow you to actually see what's inside the machine. So perhaps this was some unit for grinding. Maybe they were grinding feed for the cattle, or perhaps it was something, I don't know. Could it be some sort of mechanical churn? I'm not sure. I really don't know. Up here on the wall, we see we've got a little old key off something, or at least part of one. Now there's a powered line here, a drive line. And when I say a power line, I don't mean electrical power, but it probably was connected up to mechanical power at some point. But look at that old bolt, the old square bolt heads. What a special place this is. Now at some point in time, have a look here, there was wire, mesh. You can probably see it right there at the bottom. They've attached all of this. The gap around the bottom isn't just boards missing. They would have all had a wire mesh in it to keep it cool. And you can see the door is still covered in mesh as well. So this old door, and you can tell it's an old door, just check out that old hinge. Even just the type of mesh that it is not the same as the mesh we get now. The old door handle. This is a remarkable old door handle. Look, it almost still turns. You could probably restore that and make it work again. This area must have been a cool room of some sort. And we can see that it had a ceiling, an old fibro ceiling. The ceiling hasn't even fallen in, even though some of the sheets of iron are missing above it. Now this room was cool, and there was a breeze in it to allow to allow cooling. So if you know something about it, please tell me, because I would love to know. I would love to know more. Now in this room here, again, we've got these swinging gates, and the one on the ground I suspect was, he's gone now, but used to be attached maybe to the other side of the wall, not sure. In this area here we've got more machinery. We've got another old concrete block. We've got all this area here where the something used to be bolted. There's a motor here on the floor. So maybe that used to be bolted there. There's two oil panels on either side where you must have tipped your oil. Baltic Simplex Machinery Co, Sydney. Not sure if there's any dates there that I can actually read, but there's an old piece of machine. There's another old concrete block, and over here is some more machinery. Let's have a look. Now it's different to the other machine. Again, it's bolted down to an old concrete block. Look at these big old bolts. Sorry, I'm blocking the light and getting in the way. I can't read what some of these things say, but it looks like this might be some sort of a pump, I think. See if we can read anything of that. Not too sure. But that's a plumbing fitting, and it looks like there's another place here where plumbing can come out. So this drove off a belt at some point. The shaft goes through there. So we can see there's a hole in the wall, and that goes through to where the first machine was. We can see more componentry up here on the wall. This is more part of the drive lines that all would have been working at one point in time. Now I don't know enough about this to be able to tell you anything about it. All I know is that it's bloody fascinating. And here's part of the drive line up here. Again, I don't understand how this works, but I wonder if that line at the bottom was actually, it looks like it's clean, as in back however many decades ago that was in use. Maybe that was a clean line for transporting the milk through, and the machinery at the top was part of the workings. It would have been connected to a big motor or a plant of some sort. Anyway, I will probably never know. And then out here, I assume out here is where we've got our stalls where we milk the cows, and they would have come in through one door, either come in or come out there, and then they would have come in or out here, I guess, where this opening is. I'm really not sure. And then some of these rails out here could be opened or closed to allow or to stop the cows from coming in. Then up here we've got this old chute. So this is how they could load or unload cows onto a truck. So you see down here we've got ground level, and essentially the cow would walk up this ramp, up past all of these rocks, and up there would be the back of your truck. I'm not going to walk all the way up there because it's very loose and slippery. You can see something of the old-fashioned construction here. Of course, there is the old Cop and Co twitch that everybody would use. You put a bar through that loop and you twist the wire around and round on itself, and the bar gives you good tension so you can get it nice and tight. These are the old-fashioned slabs that have been cut out of a big tree. If you have a look at the top, you can see how the timbers are slightly rounded. Unlike a board you would buy from a sawmill today, which would be completely square, these would just slice through and they would take all of the tree. There would be no waste. They would use the whole lot. And these would have been cut by hand, and they could cut them by hand. These were probably done using a saw pit. So they would dig a hole, put a tree over the top. You'd have one guy underneath, one guy on top, and they'd be sawing away, one pulling and one pushing and so on. They would saw through the trees in this way. The other way they would make planks, and I can't see any evidence of it, they would make planks by using essentially a broadaxe and an adze. So you would chop the planks out of the tree. And you can see here how the rails used to fit into these chunks. They've cut them out of the uprights. It's not as upright anymore. And then over here you can see there's still some in place. This is where they would put the rail in place, and they could connect that up either just using wire, or they could, if they had them, old-fashioned spikes and things like that. And you can see how the rails are up in the air. That would be to allow the cows, when they're standing up here, not to jump over the side. They'd run the rails all the way up to a good height, so that the cattle would come through the race and then onto the back of the truck, which would be right here where I'm standing. This is where they would load them on. And so I think that's fascinating to see this old history here. And check out these nails. Have a look at that. It's a monster. There's a few big nails in here. Now, I'm not an expert on this type of thing at all, but I can tell you, and I'll put my finger here as a comparison. Now, there's a good 8 centimeters sticking out of the timber. It's a big old head. These are really big old nails, so you don't see too many of those about the place. And so this was their chute, and then this area over here where all these other posts are, these would have been the yards, and this would have been where they would basically have all the cattle waiting to come into the dairy. Even just the way that this has all been made. So like they've had a whole series of different, this is all just cement. It looks like they've just had a whole series of different boards and thicknesses and so on when they've boxed this all up and then poured cement down into it. And look at the amount of stone in that cement. That's a really nice cement. Now, over the years of movement and so on, it's cracked and come apart. And they've put a drain in here and built the drain and so on. You know, it's I have no idea on the age of this building. I've no idea at all, but it's fascinating to me. Look, we've got 2 of these, and that used to have that's some kind of a flexible hose. So this must be where they used to milk. These must have been the stands. I'm not sure if there was another one there that's gone now. But these were the stands, and then the milk would pump through into the other rooms, and some of that other machinery that we saw earlier must have been related to processing the milk. Whether some of this machinery, that could have been the pump that did the pumping, for all I know. Maybe this machine in here did some separating, and this area in here might be where they stored the milk or filled up their milk churns and then carted it off the market. So a fascinating little stop off, and it's not very far from the car park. So even if you don't want to go for a 5 kilometre walk right away around, just come out of the car park, head down to the start of the walk, turn right, walk a few hundred metres, and you'll be standing here. It's well worth your time. Now this pile of rocks here is a common enough sight in this area. So basically, all of this area is stony. Back in the day, a lot of this area was volcanic. The mountains were taller, and they've eroded down. A lot of the areas that they've eroded down to are quite rocky, and that's why they're still there, whereas the softer areas have washed away or blown away. So what the farmers will do is they'll come along and they'll pile all of these stones up, so that instead of having stones everywhere, they've just got a few small concentrated area of stones, and the grass can grow nicely in all the other areas. Now these stones would have been piled up way back in the day. This wouldn't be a recent event. They wouldn't have gone around with a machine to pick these up. These would have all been picked up by human beings. They might have been on a cart, they might have been on an early truck, an early ute, or they called them buckboards back in the day. But basically, this would all have happened way back when, and every one of these stones, and there's quite a few of these piles around here. You can see down there is the old dairy, another stone pile just there, there's another stone pile just over the other side of these trees and so on. They're all over the place, and each one of these was picked up by people and put here. Can you imagine the patience and the perseverance required to walk all around countryside like this, finding all these stones and picking them up and putting them down in a pile to increase the productivity of your land? I think that's fascinating as well. If you have a look at the ground, you can see that there's still quite a lot of rocks easily apparent. Have a look at those. You know, heaps and heaps of little rocks everywhere. And even though we were just looking at a rock pile, and I was showing you how the settlers picked up the rocks to try to make their land more productive, this will give you some idea of just how rocky this land would have been. And more rocks would have become exposed over time as erosion took place in this country due to the wholesale clearing of everything. You get rid of the trees, and then if you have a year where the stock eat all the grass down, there's nothing left to hold the soil together, and so you end up with all the water basically going down there. Water runs past it when it rains, and it takes all the soil with it. You see how the soil down there is really beautiful and dark and black? Well, that's all the nice topsoil that used to live up on top of the hill. So what we've got here is an old sump. So basically you've got an old timber structure here which protects some water, stops people from falling in. That's why they built this U-boot fence all around it, so that'll stop you from going in. Standard Aussie ingenuity. Now there's a little pipe there and it leads to this tank, so there's some sort of water control going on here. I can't tell you exactly what the system was or how it worked, but just around this side of the tank. So this is an old trough, and I can tell you that it's old because of what I'm seeing here. Look at these old bolts. You'd be hard pressed to find a bolt like that nowadays. And just this material that it's made out of, it's quite sturdy, but it's made out of a tin type substance. It's quite a thick tin. You can actually see from the way that it's been weathering, it's almost like a very light corrugation, which will give it a little bit of strength. And then just some angle iron which has been bent around the corner, and I'm not sure exactly how that was made, whether that was specifically built for this or something somebody's modified. Now that's an old poly pipe, and you can see that it is all blocked up inside, but it would have been connected up to this at some point. It would have been used as a filler. We can see that there's a hole in there, and at the bottom of all of that rubbish there's a hole. That's where the pipe may have been connected to fill up, and there would have been a float on the unit to tell it when it's full and to cut off a pump. And then we got this beautiful old post here. Now I'm not 100% sure, that could have even been an old railway sleeper. A piece cut out of there that at some point in time would have held a rail. And just back here at the car park, just over the fence into the lagoon, is this beautiful tree in full blossom. Now I'm not close enough to see the leaves. I can't tell if it's an apple tree or something similar. It's certainly not a native, but this would have been part of the early settlement. Somebody would have planted that tree back when they lived in the area. I don't know where the farm would have been, but certainly these sort of trees have sprung up all around the area, and that one is an absolute beauty. Can you imagine that in full sunshine? How sparkling and beautiful would it be?
So thanks for watching. I hope this video was interesting, and if you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day, and bye bye.